China to become a moderately prosperous society by 2020 and a fully modernized country by 2050, the two core goals of President Xi Jinping's Chinese dream, science and technology, energized by innovation, must play the major role. But innovation in China is still weak, and the productivity of transforming science into commercial products is still spotty. What can we learn from China's successes and failures to guide its strategies and policies? How did China's major technology companies like Huawei and Lenovo get started? What about basic science research and international exchanges? Finally, how can China improve its poor performance in protecting intellectual property rights? Appreciating China's science takes us closer to China.
By some measures, China's capacity for innovation is making substantial progress. According to OECD statistics, China's research and development spending in 2013 was more than 2% of its GDP, surpassing the average EU level. And China is projected to overtake the US as the country spending most on research and development. The number of people working on research and development in China reached 3.53 million in 2013. Significantly, China's made innovation a priority in its 13th five-year development plan from 2016 to 2020. But problems persist, especially the lack of interaction between industry and universities or other research institutions. Compounding the problem is Chinese companies' low investment in R&D. In 2014, R&D intensity, the ratio of a firm's R&D expenditure to the firm's sales, was only 1.1% in China, as compared with 3.4% and 4% in Japan and the US, respectively.
I had the great privilege of speaking with Dr. Song Jian, who is chairman of China's State Science and Technology Commission from 1984 to 1998 and responsible for initiating development of China's high-tech industries. Also joining me are Zhang Qing'an, chairman of the China Society of Reform and Science, Rinyu Ling, an expert on science productivity, and Dr. Lu Bai, a neuroscientist who spent over 20 years in the US and is now at Tsinghua University.
Food was a big concern for many Chinese until the 1980s. Because of the short supply, people could only buy food with coupons. And there were very few kinds of food available then. Meat, eggs, and vegetables were a luxury.
At that time, children got food coupon for 11 kilos of rice every month. Adults get about 15 kilos, and manual workers get about 19 kilos.
In the late 1970s, China's reform began in rural areas. About 80% of China's population lived in the countryside then, and agriculture was China's pillar industry. The State Science and Technology Commission, under Dr. Song Jian's leadership, proposed the Sparks program to the State Council and received authorization in 1986. The plan aimed to make breakthroughs in agricultural technologies and modernize China's small rural enterprise. Soon, the initiative spread to the whole country. In 10 years, the Sparks program catalyzed about 100 companies, each with a production value of more than $1 million. Official estimates says Sparks training courses have educated more than 36 million people.
Describe a little bit the Sparks program for us. What was it specifically, and how was it intended to help the rural areas at the time?
The Spark program was initiated against a backdrop of outdated agriculture in China. Let's take chicken raising as an example. Back then, every household kept 3 to 5 chickens for their eggs in rural areas, with almost no exceptions. The family saved the eggs to exchange for other food. But when I went abroad, the scenario was totally different. In Western countries, there could be 500,000 chickens in one chicken farm. We had extremely low productivity. So we took it as our starting point to learn and introduce industrialized production, as well as mechanized raising and breeding to our country.
The Spark program has significantly developed science and technology in China. It covers many sectors. To raise a few examples, the first bottles of red wine, white wine, and mineral water, the first feed additive factory, and the first nursery plant that does what we refer to as cell engineering for cultivating various germ chits. It made its first breakthrough with a banana germ chit. All these firsts were achievements we made during that period.
We spent our whole life this way. Be it in rural or urban areas, there was no difference. We greeted each other with,
"Have you had your meal?" Instead of "How do you do?"
now at least we have enough to stay away from hunger. Former Premier Zhu Rongji helped in our progress. I once heard him say that we need to set aside half a year's worth of grain harvest for emergency in state-owned grain reserves. Whenever some region suffered from disasters, the nation would help transport and offer the grains for free. In this way, we would manage to keep people away from hunger, which I believe is a remarkable achievement for all Chinese.
Uncovering the truth.
We are on our way to Liari, one of the most dangerous districts in the city of Karachi.
We were told that we're just about to cross the border between Malaysia and the Philippines.
Going the distance to get the story. We meet the real people with real hope.
For many young Thais, Muay Thai is one of the only ways to lift their families out of poverty.
Behind every corner is a great story. Assignment Asia. Expect the unexpected.
The world-renowned Zhongguancun Science Park in Beijing was established in 1988. It was the first high-tech zone in China and was created under the Torch program, which had been proposed by Dr. Song Jian's State Science and Technology Commission. Policies in the high-tech zones were designed to boost the development of high-tech companies. They included providing business startups with seed funds, cheap offices, and tax incentives. By 2014, China built more than 145 national high-tech zones across the country. R&D spending in these zones accounts for 30% of China's total corporate R&D investment. Some of China's largest and most innovative companies like Lenovo, Huawei, ZTE, and Haier thrive in these zones. But starting the Torch program was not easy.
The Torch program met some objections, not from the public, but from the State Council and various ministries and departments. Those people believed that the practice the Torch program encouraged was too unorthodox. Only running state-owned enterprises was the right way to go. They want to see everyone in the SOEs. But the fact was there were a lot of seniors in the SOEs, and so young people could only be treated like kids and serve as apprentices. It was really difficult for them to play their roles well. We noticed this problem and were aware that if young people had nothing meaningful to do, society would not move forward.
I'm still highly impressed by the CPC Central Committee's decision in 1985 to restructure China's science system. That policy change played a big role in promoting science. The decision summed up the experiences we've had since the founding of the new China. Extensively addressed problems in China's institutions and mechanisms, and created the blueprint for the whole reform initiative. With that decision, we made important progress in major areas. Back then, the most important policy change was the opening up of the technology market. Before, technologies were not counted as products, not allowed access into the market, and thus could not contribute to economic development. But the technology market's opening up allowed tens of thousands of technologies to be at the front line of the market economy. The second most important reform is that of the talent flow mechanism. Talented people were given the freedom to quit their jobs and start their own businesses. Because of this, quite a number of talents became pillars of economic development. Third, private high-tech companies were given support. They were what we today call startups. Mr. Song Jian supported entrepreneurship among technicians and other people with scientific backgrounds. He cared about technicians' work and lent support if they wanted to set up their own business. In those years, there was some misunderstanding about entrepreneurship. People were ashamed to become businessmen. But Mr. Song Jian went against the tide and advocated for doing business as honorable. He encouraged many people to go to the front lines as he saw them suited.
The Torch project paved the way for the construction of high-tech development zones where we have seen many of our projects grow. These high-tech zones are crucial, promoting not only the development of science and technology, but also reforms of the economy, society, and urban areas in general. The way we built the high-tech zones was based on Western models, so the zones enjoy broader pathways, wider green cover, a better environment, and more advanced engineering facilities, management, and technologies, as well as better everyday life. Progress was made in the way things are done in special economic zones.
I think China's science and technology stands where it is and witnessed progress because we have changed our mechanisms in line with the market economy. It has been a critical step since reform and opening up.
A recent report from the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, showed that China has become a main driver of global patent growth. In 2014, the WIPO patent offices received about 928,000 filings from China, outstripping the combined total of its next closest followers, the United States and Japan. But only about 7,900 of them, less than 1%, are recognized by the US Patent and Trademark Office. China's number is less than half of that of the Republic of Korea or Germany. The commercialization of new technologies in China is not satisfactory, especially in universities. In 2012, China's universities had 117,000 valid patents, but only about 2,400 are commercialized successfully. To address the issue, China has amended its law on transformation of scientific and technological achievement, which had been in effect for about 20 years. Under the new revisions, if there were no prior agreement between the researcher and the company, the researcher would get at least 50% of the net revenue of their scientific achievement.
You have talked about the efficiency of Chinese science, and we can look at the difference between quantity and quality. If we look at the theses of master's or doctoral students in China, there are a great many, but the citation of them is very small on a relative basis. If we look at the number of patents filed in China, it's the largest in the world, but the quality and the applicability of the patents are much more limited. So how do you balance quantity and quality in Chinese science?
Generally speaking, China has the largest number of patents in the world, but few are high in quality. It's a big challenge for us to turn research output, many of which have been recognized as scientific achievements, into tangible applications. Such efforts are worth our attention as the rate of commercializing our research findings is low compared to others. Some say the rate of commercialized patents registered and approved by government in 2013 was 35%. But the figure in many universities and research institutions is extremely low. 8.7% for state-level research organizations and a mere 1.3% for universities. Much of the funding was spent for nothing. Nothing but a waste of money. We should pay attention to the phenomenon.
The integration of industries, universities, and research institutions, and the interaction between entrepreneurs, schools, and researchers are very important. Universities enjoy a lot of resources and talents. Research institutions feature their own research focus. Companies have many demands. Only when companies recruit talents from universities and acquire technologies from research institutions to promote interaction among the three can we make the innovation more effective and beneficial.
I recently authored an article that gave a comprehensive analysis of this issue. I believe it is critical to impose stringent control over the use of research funding. We now have a lot of scientific achievements that are immature and cannot be turned into useful products. Why is that so? That's because researchers always exaggerate the significance of their research findings but set a low standard. Let me give you an example. Say we have a technology of turning coal into oil. In my understanding, only with a turning rate of more than 80% or 85% can we call it an achievement. That is, saving enough amounts of energy from the coal in the oil. But you know what? When I did an investigation during the time, a lot of factories entered the business. I learned from a chief engineer in a major company that the rate was only 42%. So I put forward my concerns and the government started to restrict the companies that wanted to follow the trend. Because we need a higher turning rate for applying technologies, we have many such technologies that are not mature enough for wider and better applications.
Meet China's decision makers and thought leaders. See them in action, hear their views, debate their policies. Meet China's leaders with me. I'm Robert Lawrence Kuhn.
When you were responsible for all science and technology in China, some in the outside world would criticize you for emphasizing only applied research and very little basic research. And your argument at the time, which I remember, is that China can't afford basic research. We have to feed the people. We have to take care of them. We need to focus on applied research. In recent years, China has developed very strongly, and you've now called for China to do more basic research. What is your historical thinking in terms of the importance of basic research for China and for China's contribution to the world?
Then my good friend Yang Zhenming told me that in those years, China's priority was to improve productivity and improve people's lives so they can stay away from hunger and famine, live free from disasters, and enjoy a better quality of life. Only on those bases shall we go into basic research. Not only statesmen but also scientists believe that applied science and technology should be promoted first. Honestly, I agreed with that proposition as well. But now things have changed. We have no serious problems with hunger anymore, and the fiscal revenue has been increasing. And so it's high time that we invest more into basic research. I myself will also call for more investments in the area. In 2015, investments from the National Natural Science Foundation of China reached 22.2 billion, almost comparable to that of the American NSF. So we say investment in basic research is indeed increasing.
According to OECD statistics, China's spending on basic research takes up 5% of its total expenditure on scientific research. This is relatively low compared with the United States, UK, and Japan. While basic science may not seem practical compared with applied science, it creates new knowledge and lays the foundation for applied science. Dr. Vannevar Bush was the director of the U.S. Office of Scientific Research and Development in the 1940s. In his letter to U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt in 1945, Bush stressed the importance of basic research. The letter later led to the establishment of America's National Science Foundation. He wrote, "A nation which depends upon others for its new basic scientific knowledge will be slow in its industrial progress and weak in its competitive position in world trade, regardless of its mechanical skill." If China expects to join other developed nations as a leader in science and technology, it has to strengthen its basic research.
According to China's innovation system, only a few dozen universities, mainly the research-oriented ones, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences prioritize basic research and strategically advanced technologies. The regular universities or research institutions in general serve for innovation in companies. But at the beginning of reform and opening up, we were in great need of technologies, which prompted society to develop them. With our constant development, technologies in general could no longer satisfy the momentum of industrial development. Future innovation should be backed by basic research. Otherwise, no major breakthroughs will be possible. But if we look at Chinese society at present, we should recognize that although our development is strong, we lack the capabilities to do basic research and produce enough products in the upper stream.
I think researchers doing basic science should not care about fame or fortune, but are devoted to the people and the nation. Those obsessed with making money can never do basic research well. So I think reforms should be made at the country level when it comes to professional evaluation and others. We cannot promote a person simply because they get their research findings awarded as scientific achievements. This will not work. Basic research is sometimes like a cornerstone. As long as there is progress made in terms of basic research, that very research finding should be recognized.
In people's mind, basic science, basic research are not as important as the discovery of breakthrough technologies and things that will lead to economic improvement. This again will come back to the culture issue. That is, China has to one day come to a point where science is being treated as a way of doing things. That is, so in the statement that we made out in the opening issue of our WeChat, I, as one of the chief editor, I made a statement. I say, science is a lifestyle. One day, if you treat science not as a way of living, not as a way of getting your own fame, not as a way of benefiting institution or economy, but it's purely for the sake of you're pursuing the truth. Science is it's an intellectual life of human being, right? So pursue the truth, satisfy your own curiosities, and scientists themselves could be interesting people. They have stories. So if science becomes that, then I think the nation will be a very different situation.
For China to strengthen its innovation capabilities, the protection of intellectual property has been seen as a bottleneck. Moreover, the enforcement of intellectual property rights, or IPR in China, has been criticized by foreign companies. China has vowed to improve the protection and management of IPR, which also facilitates its national strategy of innovation-driven development.
China has had, admittedly, a poor record of protecting intellectual property. In terms of the development of China's science industries, how serious has the problem been in the protection of intellectual property rights, and what is being done today to strengthen it?
Over the years, particularly in the 1990s or the beginning of the 21st century, there was not enough attention on the issue. But in the recent decade, we attached more significance to it and took stringent measures to protect intellectual property rights. We have made some achievements, but we have a large population in China, some well-educated, some not, and so it is complicated. Also, as I mentioned, the money-worshipping attitude and the failure in moral education cause some people to doggedly pursue their interests. Whenever many companies would launch a new product, there would soon be counterfeits in the market. Indeed, we have various problems, but we're acting to fix them.
Areas of weakness, rule of law and IP protection is one thing I think that needs a lot more work in this. So without the infrastructure of protecting intellectual property, without the punishment of those who fabricate and plagiarism and so forth, then your creativity, your intellectual properties, your whatever you do, you could do a great company like a Google, and next day somebody's copying you, and it just destroy you, right?
We're issuing IPR laws to protect our culture and art. Then we also have mechanisms that protect composers and the like. You have to pay to get the disc and hear the songs. We're improving our system to offer the needed protections.
China is determined to become a major power in all facets of science, from basic research to world-class technology companies. The early stages of China's reform stressed science entrepreneurship and new technology companies, breaking away from the planned economy and large state-owned enterprises. How much more so today is such innovation needed? China must enhance market mechanisms to allocate capital and provide opportunities to the best science-based companies, regardless of size. Although China files the most patents, their quality is often low, and only market forces can catalyze improvement. It's good that China is beginning to enforce intellectual property rights, but more must be done. China continues to need foreign technologies and must welcome foreign companies doing business here. China encourages international collaboration among scientists and engineers, which enhances China's capacities and improves China's image. Finally, I applaud China's commitment to basic science, which stimulates China's top scientists and contributes to global knowledge. Watch China's science and technology to keep closer to China.